G'day hammerheads! Today we are looking at two medium-sized rotary hammers. So we've got, well, not much colour going on the bench here. In the black we've got the Worx WX381 and in grey we've got the Flex FX1531. So these are two very similar looking rotary hammers, so pretty keen to see how they stack up against each other. And of course Flex, Worx, we got a lot of X's going on here. In fact, we're going to have more X's than a Makita catalogue. We're going to have more X's than your mum. We're going to have more X's than a Taylor Swift album. Yeah, let's run with that. Okay, so we have actually seen both of these guys a little bit before, but I thought I would do a head-to-head because they are, well, I mean, look at them. They're pretty damn similar, but you'll notice the Flex has this gigantic battery on here, and in fact, it's so big that, well, this is about the only thing I don't like about this little hammer. You can't straighten out the bloody handle. So this guy is 24 volts, this one's 18. They both got this classic, like, Bosch rotary hammer shape where you've got the inline motor and hammer up here. They got the battery in the middle, so that makes it quite compact and nicely balanced. So the center of gravity is basically, I can't balance it, but basically straight in the middle because the battery's right there. And they are all 3 modes, so that's drill only, hammer drill, and hammer only. And the Worx brand is owned by Positech, which is one of these big Chinese companies that owns a lot of brands. They've also got Cat and a few others. Flex is owned by Chevron, which is another big Chinese conglomerate, and they own Skill, among others. So Flex has, in the last couple of years, kind of rebranded itself. They've got a 24 volt system now, and I've got to say, this is pretty impressive. Let's just take a look at this battery. She's got the indicator and the release right on the end there, and of course, something that I love, probably everyone loves, is the battery indicator. Oh boy, she lights up like the underside of a Stance Civic on a Saturday night. So super handy. But this particular drill is obviously just a reworked version of the old Skill on account of that. So if there was an 18 volt Skill battery in there, she'd fit no worries. And these tools are both brushless, of course. But this guy is also sensorless. She's brushless, she's cordless, she's sensorless. I guess, you know, eventually we'll get rid of all this stuff and we'll just be left with good intentions running our tools. But what that means is, you can kind of see it in the very back there, that little board there, they've worked out how to run a battery without these little sensors, Hall sensors on there, which sense where the magnetic field is in the motor. That'll mean the whole motor sub-assembly is a little bit smaller, so, you know, you can fit more motor in there or make the tool a bit smaller. Now that kind of thing's probably not going to make a difference in a rotary hammer like this, but if you're trying to, say, design the stubbiest little impact you can, you'll notice it there. So, you know, that's going to be a thing in power tools in the future as well, so yeah, now you know. And the Worx pretty similar to this guy aside from its 18 volt battery. And Worx has been interesting in that they used to really say they were professional tools, but now they kind of dropped that. It looks like they're mostly going for the sort of home and garden market. And to be honest, you know, it kind of feels like that. Compared to this one, the Worx does not feel like as much of a durable tool. For example, if you look at the size of the battery mount and you compare that to, say, a Makita, basically, this is just a lot smaller. There's going to be a lot less stuff holding the battery onto the tool, and that kind of thing is going to be breaking a lot more easily than your Makita battery mount or, you know, your other pro-grade tools. So there's just not a whole lot of meat holding those batteries on. The build quality feels fine, but you can just kind of tell it just, you know, maybe the plastic's not as thick or something. But, you know, it just doesn't quite feel like she's made for job sites. Kind of feels like she's more for home and garden use. You know, like your Bosch Green or your Ryobi or that kind of thing. Whereas the Flex, she does feel like a pro-grade tool, you know, maybe in the range of DeWalt or something like that. Doesn't feel quite as finely made as Bosch, for example. And obviously, you know, that's super subjective, but if you've handled a few different brands, you know, you kind of know what I mean. And the batteries, of course, big difference there. But that is basically your standard kind of 18 volt or 20 volt. Full of 18650 cells, whereas this guy is going to be full of 21700s. So for example, about the same as your Makita 18 volt versus your Makita 40 volt. Alright, so let's look at the specs. The Worx is $289 dues, which is about $190 US at the moment, versus $199 US for the Flex. Not available in Australia, so US only. Weight, both about 2 kilos. capacity, both 22 millimeters or about 7/8 of an inch, and impact force. So they reckon the Worx has a little bit more impact force, 2 joules versus 1.7. Impact per minute, 4,700 versus 4,500. So the impact power, we're looking at 9,400 joules per minute for the Worx and 7,650 for the Flex. So theoretically the Worx should actually drill a bit faster, and RPM 1,350 versus 1,400. All right, so let's see how they perform. Let's get drilling. So the first test, as usual, 12 by 80 mil, drilling into 32 MPa concrete. Alright, for the 12mm speed drill, normally I do the colours of the drills we're looking at, but we've got grey versus black, so yeah. We can see that both of these guys are around the middle of this big pack, which makes sense. They're both mid-sized rotary hammers. We got the Worx averaging 10.91 seconds, and the Flex is actually slightly faster, 10.49. So that is interesting. On paper, this guy should be drilling a little bit slower. And next is the max capacity drill. So they're both rated to the same 22 millimeters. They're drilling 80 mil into a bit of concrete. Same concrete, just poured into a different tub. Let's see how they go. And the max capacity, so they are drilling some of the bigger holes on the board up here. They are going to be going a little bit slower than these guys drilling little holes, so yeah, it makes sense. But once again, we've got the Flex just in front of the Worx, 51.92 seconds versus 57.25. All right, so let's try and work this whole thing out. Let's do some chipping. So we just got a flat chisel, SDS, set these guys to hammer only mode. And I've got some concrete retaining blocks and marked out 50 millimeters or about 2 inches from the edge. And we're just going to see who knocks that edge off fastest. Alright, so with the chipping, look at that, the Worx is actually ahead of the Flex, 4.77 seconds versus 5.82. Now this is what you'd expect given the stats, but I'm guessing the manufacturer does that testing in hammer only mode, and so, you know, if this one has a less powerful motor than that guy, maybe she just can't handle the hammering and the rotation as well as the bigger, more powerful 24-volt tool. Well, luckily there's one more test we can do to find out. Alright, so we've had some pretty interesting results so far. Let's just put the motors to the test. We'll set them in drill only, give them an SDS adapter and a spade bit on there, and see how fast they can get through 3 inches of pine. Alright, so the concrete drilling results are starting to make a bit more sense. We have the Flex about 30% faster than the Worx in the drilling only test, 2.18 seconds versus 3.32. Now, of course, the Flex does rev a little bit faster, which means it will have the edge in this kind of test already, but this 22mm size I chose, it was basically the limit of what the Worx could do. She actually stalled a couple of times doing this test, so right at the limit. So this is definitely putting these motors to the test in terms of power. The Flex had no problems at all, no stalling, didn't even really slow down at all, but the Worx was right at a limit. So yeah, it looks like more powerful motor in the 24-volt tool. Alright, so there you go, hammerheads. It looks like the 24 volts is actually making a difference. And I gotta say, I didn't really expect that. Because, you know, with rotary hammers, it's not so much about the motor power, it's more about the actual hammer mechanism itself. But it turns out if you've got a bit more power to run the rotation as well as the hammering, well, yeah, you're going to drill a bit faster. So, like, I'm pretty impressed with this. Now, the Flex is a reworked version of an old 18-volt drill from Skill, but I gotta say, I am looking forward to see if Flex comes up with a new, purpose-designed 24-volt hammer in this size. And of course, the Worx, she performs, pretty much the same as this, really. It's a really handy size, and it's going to be a super capable tool if you are a DIYer, a home yarner, and you reckon you might need to drill a fair bit in concrete or even just do a bit of, tile stripping or whatever. It's going to be a really nice addition. Plus, the whole power share system for Worx, they've got a lot of really handy tools. So if you've got the power share system, this guy's going to be a nice addition to your arsenal. You can definitely do a lot of damage with this around the house. So anyway, Hammerheads, thanks for watching. That's going to be us from the X-Men and I. Please don't sue me, Marvel.